Right, today is June 29th, 2018, and we are conducting interviews of external organizations who are requesting funding from the City of Watertown. So please introduce yourselves and tell us about your program.
I will start. Dawn Sickink, I'm the Executive Director with Beacon Center. It is a dual program for domestic violence and sexual assault individuals. We have a safe shelter for individuals to stay when they're fleeing domestic violence and also sexual assault. That also includes stalking. So there's a variety of different services that we provide to include Family Visitation Center, which is supervised visitation and safe exchanges. And all of these services are done here in town, and we cover a 5-county area, which includes, of course, Coddington, Hamlin, Clark, Dual, and Grant counties. So we have a big area to serve, but one of those things is that we're absolutely thrilled that we're able to provide this service because there's not any other place close to us except for Brookings and then Aberdeen. So with that being said, I mean, we always welcome everybody to come by and tour, and that's the best way to get a good idea of what we do. Then we can show you. And so with that, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Kaya Graves. I'm the treasurer.
And I'm Denise Regals. I'm the executive administrator.
All right. And I see you have a story. You said one of 616?
Yep.
Is that how many people use the shelter? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The 616, that is the number of individuals who have sought out our services, whether it's in the shelter, counseling, legal assistance, medical advocacy, or a family visitation center. So all those numbers include some of those services, and that's not all of them because we follow people for case management to make sure that they can get into housing, and also to make sure that we do the case management piece so they know that they're being self-sufficient, and if there are needs that are still needing to be met, we can continue to work with them on a monthly or daily basis. So that number incorporates the different services that we've provided throughout the year. With that being said, there's when you start counting them, there's 12,000 that we've done, services that we've provided over the past year. So it could be a follow-up, or it could be a quick phone call, or it could be a 3 to 4 hour forensic exam at the emergency room, or a counseling session, or a group therapy, a visitation with their mom or dad because there's other issues and safety issues that they now have to seek out our services to meet with their children to be reunified. So all of that encompasses what Beacon Center does, and that's who we are, and what we try to do is to provide a place for people to seek out so they can continue and move on toward their goals.
And what percent of the people that use the service are women?
It's a lot. Well, out of the 616, 5 of those were men last year.
Okay.
So
vast majority.
Yeah, the vast majority are women.
But it's not limited to
women. No, not at all. We actually just had incorporated what we call the universal room, where we could actually house a man on site without him having to be in the same community area as the women. So now because we used to put them in the hotel, and that's not really providing the same services. So we felt that it was a need for us to be able to continue to offer the best services for men as well, and the same services.
How do you measure the success of your program? One
of them is kind of like the letter that we provided. So we ask our clients and individuals who have used our services what their thoughts are as far as how they feel about Beacon Center and where would they have been. And so when we look at how we measure success, we look at these stories and see where they're at and how they come back and say, I couldn't have done this. I really just all these things that you've done, you were there for me. And I think the awareness and things, the services that we can provide them so they can get back out on their own, get away from their abuser, and not have to worry about being tormented or called different names or hit or anything of that nature. So each story and each situation is very unique, but those are our success stories. And if it's that one person out of 10, then that's a success story. And those other 9 will be back It's just a matter of how long it actually takes them to do that. So that's how we measure it. So each time we have somebody come back to us and tell us, that you've done a wonderful job and thank you. When we get that thank you, that's our success. And that's why we're there.
Right. Have you seen the demand for the services increase?
Over the past 2 years, yes.
Do you think it's because of awareness that it's there, or that there's a growing need in our community?
We don't really look at how that works out, but I do think, one, the awareness piece, we are definitely out in the community a lot more than we used to be, and so we're in the schools and all of pretty much all the educational systems providing some sort of information to them. So I think we're trying to be proactive and get information out, and so that also spawns people coming in and to use our services. But I also think there is, there's a heightened increase of some of this stuff that's going on with the meth use and things of that nature. It all causes some of this domestic violence, sexual assault stuff. You got drugs, you got alcohol. It's not a good mixture, especially if you have somebody who has some anger issues or control issues or manipulative, or even, it could be a trafficking victim, who knows. You put all those elements together, you end up having a bad situation where they end up having to come and seek out our services.
Wow. So what do you consider to be your greatest challenge?
Finding housing for the individuals. We've got, I know, probably 2 or 3 individuals with us right now. Based on where they're at, and if they're single or if they're children, the income guidelines that we have to work with are too low. Their income guidelines, their income's low, but the standards for the rent and stuff, the rent's too high, and so we have to go with a fair market rate and use that through South Dakota Housing, the guidelines there, and so we have to use 30% of their income. Is how we base on whether or not they're eligible for different programs. And right now, I think one of them, they can spend up maybe to $300 for rent, and then a couple $100 for utilities. That's $500 total. There's no way anybody's going to get into a place for that. Especially if you do, if you're charging, what is it, $100 a square foot or whatever it is. I think that's one of them. But, so those pieces are challenging, and then, if they do come in with any felonies or drug charges or anything, we're having to write a lot of appeal letters, and then sometimes they still get denied, and then you're kind of, out of luck as far as where we can place them, because we do have some programs that we can help with security deposits and rent and utilities, but they have to meet those guidelines that are set up by South Dakota Housing and the Housing Authority. We just, unfortunately, it's out of our hands. But really, that's a big, huge challenge.
Yeah, I could see. What do you do?
Well, here we've been looking now. What we're doing, we've just spoke with one of the ladies that we have in house right now, and have told her that she's going to have to look outside of Watertown, because there's just not anything in Watertown that's going to fit her needs. And so start looking out into the more of the rural areas to see if we can get a lower rent for her, so that she can be on one of our programs, and then if you have a disability, your income's very restrictive, and so it just becomes a domino effect. You can't get here and you can't get there, and if they can't get into a safe environment and a place to lay their head at night, they're not going to move forward at all. There's not going to be any progress, and so that basic need of housing has to be met. Otherwise, we're just kind of spinning our wheels, and we see that sometimes, when and they get frustrated and they just leave and they can't find anything, and then we'll see them again, because the situation hasn't been resolved per se. It's just that they have so many frustrating moments and events in their life, that when housing should be something that is a right for everybody, and they can't get it because of this, that, or the other, then it becomes very frustrating for them.
Vicious cycle too.
Very vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Very vicious.
What's your vision?
Well, we've got some big dreams, I guess you could say, with individuals and working in this field for quite some time. There's a couple different levels of things. You know, we have our domestic violence, sexual assault, but we also have the homeless piece. All those people are still seeking out the homeless or the housing, and until you're in a place where you can be yourself, you can't work on anything else. So our vision at some point in time was like, we'd really like to see something where we would have a program where we could work with people, you know, for a couple years or something like that, that we have placed into, you know, like our own facility where we have a way to monitor them, check on them, do case management. That's a big dream. It's a huge dream, but they do it in other places. It's just, and I know we've talked to South Dakota Housing and out of Pierre, and she approached me last time we were there and asked if we've been working. I said I would love to do this. It's just funding's one, and a place for it, and I think that it's not going to solve everything, but it would definitely give individuals who have no other resource or no support system the support they need to become self-sufficient and potentially remain self-sufficient. And there's a lot of tools that we can provide people, but unless you're there to help manage them and help walk them through some of these things, then the struggle for them to get from point A to point B is very difficult. And so really I think that's something that I'd like to see, whether we tackle it or somebody else does, I don't know, but it really comes down to being able to go into the place and monitor and do case management with them, and it's something I think that would be very beneficial. And of course, anytime you have stuff like that, then it's less costly for the city because you're not having to manage where they're at, or putting them up in a hotel or things of that nature. But there would be a lot of different tools you'd have to use, credit counseling, all that, the whole gamut. That'd be something that they would have to do in the case management portion in order to stay in the program. They work the program, they get to stay, and then show them how to do this and progress and become part of the community and give back as well. And we've seen that where people are able to do that, but more than not, they end up kind of falling back into the same cycle because they don't have that one-on-one or that person to give them that guidance to continue down a path that's positive and stay away from some of the negative things that can make you make bad choices.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So there.
That's a lot of information. I know there's a need. I keep hearing it from all different directions and lots of different segments. And I have that vision too of someday having that available, a place where people can go and kind of get their feet on the ground in a clean environment.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what kind of bad environment they came from, you need a clean environment to get back on the right track, and that's the challenge.
Yes.
That really is a big challenge because we slip back into our old ways.
Right, break the cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the hard part is and if there's no resources available, then that's typically what happens. Unfortunately, because there's just you get into some places that there could be bad influences, and if the situation's not being monitored, so to speak, for a lack of a better way to say it, then they fall right back because that then becomes their support again, and that's not a good support. So I think it's doable. It's going to take a lot of thought and effort, but I do see it as a need as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. So your parting words for the watching people?
Well, what we've done, our parting words is that I have also, as the director, have had a vision of providing 24/7 services and being open to make sure that we have and maintain the safety. Well, we're getting ready to implement that. When we wrote our grants with the states this time, I asked for 4 new positions, 1 being a full-time counselor, which we're going to get, and then 3 overnight staff. So now we're going to be manned 24/7. And so that is, one of the reasons. Yeah, it's very exciting.
When will that start?
It already started. We June 1st is the start of our grant cycles, and so that's when the money's available to do that. So taking that new piece on, I really don't know how all this is going to look at next year when, when this time comes around, but I feel really good because what I asked for as far as funding for personnel, we got. So everything else is that you could see in our budget is, when we come to the city, it didn't change anything. I requested the 10,000 and that didn't change because I got everything else, but that helps support the services that the staff are going to be providing. So that's going to be, more for just the overall general costs of keeping us providing quality services. But it's going to be a good year. That's something that we've wanted to do, and it happened.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It really is a very unique and valuable service that we have in our community. It's a benefit to the people who live here. So thank you for all you do. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for taking
Thank
time
you.
for us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.